you are one of the bright sparks in humanity, and there's a price to pay for that. And the reward is that you make people like idiots like myself and Kevin absolutely happy. The sacrifice is that for your art, the uncompromising way that you want to do your thing takes away from you. It takes, financially, there's sacrifices. I'm sure you could have sold out. I'm sure you could have gone to Marvel and just made money. And I think the integrity of your work, um, there's a price to pay for that. So it's not a lack of providing, being a provider. I think it's an enormous amount of integrity and character.
Look! Look, the dynamic duo!
I want
It's a
to ask you
life
guys a
experience.
question though. I mean, you
Of course.
obviously got a lot of things going on with your life, and you think, and you're sensitive, and you you wouldn't be talking to me if you didn't want something more to life than what anyone would hand somebody, which is empty contentless things. What makes you act like that? I mean, do you have high goals? You said your dad was an actor and he talked you out of it, but you must have things in your life going on that I don't know about that you should tell other people on this broadcast here, podcast, Skype meeting. What plans do you have to make your life grandiose and out of the ordinary?
That's a great question, and we're not ready for that question. I think there's a big answer to that question. Certainly, what I like to do is divert that question into my friend and my partner, Kevin.
Yeah, let's hear
Um,
from Kevin.
yeah, and before you say Kevin, because I know you're going to be humble as well, Kevin is a hero to me. Kevin is an absolute hero to me. And the reason that he's a hero to me is because he's gone through a lot of like difficult things in his life. And he is a fighter that pushes through the barriers of pain and comes out on the other side a happy, ready to go person. If you get into the details of what this guy has experienced, and to see him sitting there talking to you, it's something that humbles me on a daily basis. So, Kevin, I'm sorry to say this, but go ahead.
It's thank you, but you know how I feel about you as well. But thank you, and Mr. Rude, to answer your question. One thing with me is I have cerebral palsy, and last year I suffered a stroke, but I have always, and I do mean always, wanted to go into um, the media industry and go into Hollywood, that kind of thing. I've loved comics, animation, and all things along that line ever since I was a child. And I have always wanted to get my foot in the door, and I haven't stopped. I am 61 years old myself, but I will keep going until my last breath. And without sounding corny or phony again, as I stated earlier, you are one of my influences, and I'm just gonna keep fighting. I feel, as you and Franz do, there isn't enough positivity in the world, and if I can do anything to bring that positivity forward, that's what I'm going to do.
Do you relate to Stephen Hawking much?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Um,
Greatest mind on the planet, trapped in
Dr. Hawking has always been one of my personal heroes. Always.
Well, let's
For me,
talk more about Franz here. What great qualities does he have that you see transcend a normal person?
One, he's his strength is unbelievable. He's absolutely creative. Franz is the reason why the podcast exists. To be honest, sir, I did not want to return to this after my stroke. I didn't think that people would be able to understand me enough again to even continue this. And with the insistence of Franz, his family, my own family, and well beyond, with a number of friends that I have continued to do what I do, and I'm trying to get back into broadcasting, etc., as I said.
Well, that explains it. So uh, that's what we share. We're pretty identical with all the things you were complimenting me with. You have that onto yourselves.
It's an interesting thing. You know, I'm not comfortable. You know, I'm not comfortable with compliments. I have to say, it's a reflection on you, Steve, and that you ask, that you care enough to ask. Like some of the people that we interview, you know, they just focus on their answers, and I receive that you're asking about this side. I think, you know, I've been lucky enough to be successful in business, to be able to take care of my family and myself. But I think more than that, I think what you talked about earlier is something that I've always taken very, very seriously. The give back. The give back is important to me. I think the energy that I bring into the world um, means the world. And every person that I meet, I try to bring something positive to that experience. And I've you know, used some of my successes to create organizations, nonprofits, to make a difference in the world, things like that. I just think it's important. I think what you said earlier, the obligations that we have when we have opportunity, I think it's important. And I also think it's important, again, something that you said earlier, you said you're 60 and you're not going to waste your time being aggravated. I think life is very, very precious and we need to enjoy it. And so I don't sacrifice enjoyment. I don't sacrifice my love of superheroes, even though I'm an adult. I don't sacrifice. So we do this podcast 99% because we enjoy it. We're talking
Yes.
to you because we enjoy it. There's nothing we want from you, of you. And I think life needs to be lived in a rich basis. And so this type of stuff is along the lines of how we feel about life, and and not to take it for granted. I've lived enough. I've experienced enough. I've been in, you talked about travel earlier. I've been to enough places to see real misery, to real poverty, and real success. And and my dad has also taught me to literally not take a second for granted. When I walk outside, if it's a beautiful day, I acknowledge. If it's a rainy day, I acknowledge it. That's the way I do. And I think it's interesting. There's an interesting correlation between art and the observer, you know? And I think one of the things that I realized in this conversation is what your life experiences brings to your art. Well, I think the same is true too. I think our life experiences brings to us being able to appreciate your art, not to overlook it, to understand the details and to see the nuances. And so I think that's where the connection is I think is made. Hopefully, I don't know if that made any sense.
That makes perfect sense to me. You guys, if you weren't doing this, you should be writing books or doing your own comic or whatever vehicle you would want to get your ideals across. That's all I'm doing. That's what you guys are doing too with this podcast here.
Just so
Well-
you know, and this conversation is not about me at all. I don't know if that's what you were going to say, Kevin, but I just published my first book. My interests are varied; they're vast, and I take it seriously when I say that I don't take life for granted, and I take every opportunity out there. So I just published my first book. I'm
Wow.
launching a new business. It's pretty rich. Yeah.
And you're successful at it.
Mr. Rude, I have to say that within your influences on me, and this is not just lip service. I love your work because you are so forward and so positive with the things that you've done. Your work with Marvel, with DC, and especially with Nexus, the whole business of being a hero, stepping forward, using your powers and the positivity that comes with being who we are as a people. I have spent, without standing on a soapbox myself, I spent a number of years in hospitals and literally flat on my back. And your work, as well as the work of Mr. Kirby, and people like Neil Adams and beyond, are the individuals that have kept me going, even with what I've been through. And I thank you, sir.
Well, we're lucky to have you in the world.
Yeah.
Kevin,
You know,
that's-
it's an amazing thing. You know, this interview, this conversation, the truth is we get two things out of it. We get to meet one of our heroes, and that's, we can't take that away from that. But believe it or not, part of the reasons that we do this is because it's important to us. The very first question I asked you was, do you get it? It's important to us that you understand the impact that you've had, and that you don't overlook it, and you understand how great you are. And great is not the right word, because it's not the accolade, it's the impact. To know that
Yes.
you've touched someone else's life that way, to me, is the highest achievement in humanity. And
I think
it's
yeah,
important.
I do.
Yeah, and I think that's what we wanted to convey to you. That's why the first question is, do you get it? And that's why we don't mind praising you and making sure that you understand that lesson. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, this conversation couldn't have gone better for me, Kevin. What do you think?
I mean, it's the only other question that I have for you, sir, is within the world of Star Trek and Star Wars, what would you do to fix the two?
To fix them?
Uh-huh.
Well, I wouldn't bother to deny my properties. My obligation is to what I do in bringing my lifetime goal to the people of the world, in hoping, and actually I never say hope. It's knowing I can change the world with it for the better.
Well, by the way, two things that I wanted to ask you. One is kind of a funny one, but you had said something about, you said you're successful at it, and I think it's an important thing to answer that point. I think success is a relative term. I've been successful from a business point of view, enough to be able to have a crazy wall. By the way, did you notice my Nexus statue?
I did not. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see that far.
Oh, you'll see it later. You need to do another Nexus statue, by the way, and I could hook you up. I've got contacts, and so I could hook you up with sculptors success is a relative term. I've been able to be successful enough in business to be able to afford me to do these types of things. But when I publish a book, for example, I don't judge success from the point of view of if it becomes a bestseller, or if it makes $1 billion, or if I get to be interviewed. That's not what I look at as success. First, for me, is the fact that I did it. is an accomplishment that I recognize. And if the few people that have read it get it, and we talked about getting it, to me, that's all the success I need. Everything else is icing on the cake. And so that going back to your issue of being a provider, listen, you're in a beautiful home, you've got your studio, you are a provider. You are an absolute provider. Um, not being a multi-billionaire is not a reflection on you as a provider. It's just that you're not that's icing on the cake. What you are providing to the world that's the value, that's the meat of it all. And it's a journey that, again, it's unfortunately that requires sacrifice, but it's the kind of thing that needs to be applauded by family, friends, fans, and the world in general. So kudos to you. The funny thing that I wanted to ask, one of the things that I've always noticed about your art, I mean, I'm talking about going back 40 years ago, fashion. I think you should be a fashion designer. You design clothing that I don't see literally the designer is coming close to. Have you ever thought about that? Is that something you recognize? Is that something you work on? Do you copy the designs or do you create them? I'm talking about literally like Sandra Peel's dresses.
Oh, well, speaking of dresses, fashions, and the animated cartoon that I'd love to do, can I show you a few things that are exactly along that line?
Are you kidding? Absolutely.
Oh, please. Please.
So in preparation for the show, one of the hundreds and hundreds of things I've done is to do model sheets for their outfits.
Yeah.
So there's one.
That's what I'm talking about. That's literally what I'm talking about.
Yes.
There's another.
Oh, you're kidding.
There's yet another.
That's brilliant.
You should get a big sweatshirt on for this one here. These are over an existing mannequin right here.
So when you do these, are you doing it from the point of view of I'm just doing it for the comic book, or are you doing it from the point of view I'm designing clothing?
I'm doing what I need to do to make the show good.
Oh my gosh. That's what I'm talking. That's literally what I'm talking about.
Ron, we've got to do something to get this animated series on the air.
No, yeah, we're gonna. Oh my God, that's beautiful, Steve. That's beautiful.
Well, she can't always walk around with skin tight outfits to make her look sexy, but so I throw in large sweatshirts.
So again, let me ask the question again. Are you thinking designer, or are you just thinking just for the show? Like, are you thinking designer at all? Do you appreciate that you are actually a great designer?
Well, that's just part of the package, guys. Kevin and Franz. The mentality that I come from is from the illustrators, from the warriors, as I call it. And the illustrators left no stone unturned as far as the thinking process that had to go into what they're doing to make it good in the first place. So that's that. I don't think specifically I'm creating fashion. I'm thinking this would look good on her.
Interesting.
That's pretty much it. But these are some of the cells from the actual cartoon from both pilots here.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. So is the cartoon being worked on? I know the relationship is unsatisfactory, but is there a project? Is there an actual project that's being worked on, both cartoon and live action?
Well, they say they're working on the live action, but I haven't heard anything new come out of their mouths for 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, it started 6 years ago, and they've produced actually absolutely nothing in the last 4 years.
Oh, you got to be kidding. Oh my God, Kevin, look at that.
Whatever the dynamic duo needs to do to make this a reality, we are gonna have to do this.
Oh my
That
God.
is fabulous.
Well, what I've noticed, part of my life philosophy, that everything begets something. So that's why you cannot live in a vacuum,
Yeah.
because there's going to be like-minded people, and this is where these weird things happen out of the unknown corners of your life. You will spark somebody to incite them to do something that, had you not met them, nothing ever would have happened the way it did. And it's, in knowing that I will get this thing, and it absolutely has to happen, but at the same time being very, very relaxed about it, is directly corresponding with what you're bringing up here. The idea that somebody, anyone, you or anyone else, could suddenly see this thing. Well, that's exactly the way I know it's going to happen, and that's why I don't go out of my way to do any more of these. Look at this. Tell me what you think. Would you want to buy? I don't do that anymore. I always knew from the beginning that's not the way to do it. I
Yeah.
tried it. I experienced it. I knew what it was and what it did, and it did nothing. The person that is going to do this with me comes from um, them coming to me, them
Yeah.
realizing what it could be, and they want to help out. It's really pretty simple.
Wow, look at
Yeah,
that. That's literally from the teaser that we watched, Kevin. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah,
And
that's the
also
original
from
art from that.
the comic itself.
Oh, got it.
Do you have to draw the sequences one after the other, like a million versions, or are you using computer programs? Are you doing the back in the day Disney technique?
I am, and I'm going to grab something here. Given that I've produced scripts, storyboards, layouts, and all the model sheets, then it was time for me to learn animation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I emphasized the hard way, the slow way, the only way it's going to stick in my brain. So I'm doing a lot of things like this.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's what I was talking about.
And I've got examples from hundreds of different things that I like. And so I would take these shots, line up Alice in order of sequence here, and see how her hair moves, how her
Yeah.
skirt moves, how she runs. Is
Right.
she's not going to run like a 300-pound old lady? And I just study these things endlessly, and then I adapt what I see here to my own show, and from that I'm learning the art of animation.
Fascinating. It's amazing how varied your talent and your interests are. Very, very similar to us in many ways, because you work in so many different mediums: pastel, ink, oil, and now you're getting into animation. You're writing.
a true Renaissance man.
A Renaissance man, indeed. A Renaissance. Any particular medium that you prefer of all of them? With oil, pastel, watercolor?
I have none.
You have none.
They're all part of the vast playground that an artist should explore.
Fascinating. And writing, may I ask, like, Mike, but you're taking over the writing chores. Did Mike Barron retire? Is he not doing it anymore?
No, and in fact, given the fact that me and Barron are as tight as ever,
Beautiful.
I owe him. Yeah, he's somebody that has devoted so much of his life to doing good things that my loyalty to him is unchallenged.
Excellent.
So I do anything I can. But there came a point when we were starting to diverge story ideas where that Nexus was going to go, especially once he had the kid, Harry.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to break it off into two separate entities of Nexus. So you are getting the Baron version of where it would go, and you're getting my version. In the case of Gormondo, that was about 90% me. And
Oh wow.
yeah, Thuna World is actually 100% me.
Correct.
And then
I didn't realize Gormondo was 90% you. I thought it was more of a collaboration, because he's listed as writer and you co-writer. Yeah. Is he publishing? Wow. Is he publishing Nexus too, or no?
He is publishing his own version. And I encourage people to take advantage of this and look at the two original creators that worked in tandem perfectly for 20 years and see how things have diverged creatively since then.
That would
Because
be fascinating.
yeah, that's what brought about the so-called split in the first place, where we wanted to do different versions. The hardest part for me was learning how to write because I never expected or wanted to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
I had no choice, so having no choice, what are you gonna do, right?
Wow, that's by the way, I'm gonna be all over that because that would be very, very interesting to find the
Mhm.
subtle differences between the two creators and their perception of the character. That's interesting to me.
Well,
That's very interesting.
it's interesting to you and me, and probably other people. I what I really would like is to get feedback on the two versions. That's vital to me to hear the responses of individuals telling both of us their their um, their personal choices and what is doing it for them and what isn't it doing it for them, because we're not aligned anymore as far as storytelling goes.
Interesting.
And oh, Princess is walking in here, but we're going to keep going. We're not going to listen to Janelle here.
No, by the way, we've taken enough of your time. I don't know how long
Uh-huh.
we've been going. So feel free to end. You've been more than generous with that. The question I have for you though is we'll give you that feedback, but we have to
Yeah.
be careful with feedback because feedback could be positive, it could be negative. And we're going to ask our audience as well to do that. We're going to encourage them to pick up Nexus and to pick up The Coming of Gormandu, which, by the way, was obviously inspired by Galactus and Silver Surfer, but you reinterpreted that story in a beautiful, powerful way, in a unique way. So I am loving absolute 100% feedback on Gormandu. I haven't gotten to Toon World yet. I just recently bought them. As I said, I was in Madison not too long ago. So the question I have is, do you want feedback? Do you want people to say, "Hey, listen, I do like Mike Barron's better," or what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear. I just want genuine, honest feedback. Is that otherwise it's not genuine and it's not worth anything to me. But
Agreed. I agree.
given the diversity of minds out there, and me saying life is an individual answer, we've already published letters. In fact, when you read Thune or Thune World, yeah, Thune World, you'll see in the letter column there's diversity as you can get. There are people saying Rude can't write to bring back Baron. It's like it reminds me of
Oh, you're kidding.
when rock bands split
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, exactly.
Singer tries to take over.
Exactly.
It's I see it as a very standard universal procedure to always look at things and wish the Beatles would get back together,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they didn't. And nobody on Earth would have wanted it otherwise. And yet, if it would have happened, it may not have been quite what you guys were expecting.
You're right. You're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that. And you're absolutely right. And sometimes that divergence needs to take place. I promise you, it's going to be fascinating for me to study that difference. And
Oh, yeah.
I promise you also that it's such an experience reading this because again, my appreciation for the artwork, for the storytelling on so many levels, and then the writing is if you're 90% writing this is brilliant. You're a writer.
Well, to
So
clear it up permanently is as a just as a this is an act of truth. Barrett came up a long time ago with Gormando and Gnosis. At least 30, 40 years ago, he came up with that idea. And I thought, but the idea he told me about it didn't hold up for me.
interesting.
So when Barron suggested this idea of these things sprouting out of the ground, which you see at the beginning of Gormando, and it turns out to be in a bug infestation, I had the grand, crazy idea to take that idea that I rejected of Gormando and Gnosis and tie the whole story into them.
Interesting.
Like, where are these
Interesting.
bugs coming from? Who eats these things? So wild as my imagination is, I just got to work and I tied the entire thing into each other. The bugs, where do these hairs, these spikes coming from? And then, well, it's because this guy feeds on them, and this guy is his sentinel.
Wow.
And
Wow.
you've got another 1,000 things that go on, like you said, the different levels.
Yeah.
Different levels is a huge part of dense
Mhm.
storytelling.
Yeah.
And the way I look at that is in Star Trek, you have phasers and monsters. And then you have the psychology of the characters.
Absolutely.
Then you have the themes that they're trying to exploit when they write it, because you can't write a story intelligently without a substance behind of why you wanted to tell it in the first place.
Absolutely. 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 And I pick up all of that. By the way, let me ask you the question that everybody wants to know. Is it Ilum, Wylam, Yellum? How do you pronounce?
Well, if we
How
ever
do you
get the TV
pronounce
show,
Ilum?
if you ever
Huh?
get the animated show, that'll be cleared up in one line. But it's and it's fun. Me and Baron have joked about that for years, because no matter how many pronunciation keys we put in the book, nobody gets it.
Nobody gets it.
But the proper pronunciation is Ilum.
Island. That's what. And you know what? I was there. That's the way I said it. Island.
Yes.
We
That's
must have
interesting.
mentioned at least 10 times in the last 30 years how to pronounce that. And nobody still gets it. It's just it's a phenomenon in a lot of ways.